All right, let's get into it. And we're going to run it all the way back to last summer, July 25th. Mayo Zambada, Ismael Mayo Zambada ended up at a private airfield near El Paso, Texas. He was reportedly lured and betrayed by Joaquin Guzmán López, the son of El Chapo Guzmán. And he is now facing 17 federal charges, including drug trafficking, money laundering, arms trafficking, kidnapping, murder conspiracy, along with so much more. Now, this is spanning New York and federal jurisdictions. Essentially, his crimes affected Americans, period. All right, this pretty much goes for most of these major kingpins, which is why they're able to get extradited to the U.S. Or, I mean, Mayo was not extradited. Okay, he was kidnapped. And those major capos that were sent on a plane to the U.S. also, they didn't go through the typical extradition process that Mexico and the U.S. has an agreement with, which is why there was this rhetoric that, oh my God, all these guys are going to get the death penalty, because that extradition agreement between the two countries prevents any of these criminals from facing the death penalty. That paperwork wasn't filed. That's not how it went down. Yet these guys still somehow, I mean, I know how, got out of the death penalty. So this week, the U.S. Department of Justice, the Eastern District of New York, notified Judge Brian Cogan that Attorney General Pam Bondi ordered not to seek the death penalty against Zambada. Now, his defense attorney, Frank Perez, who had been exploring options since at least January of this year. And we saw so much go on in January because not only, okay, Trump was inaugurated. These guys were declared FTOs. Almost 30 major capos were sent to the U.S. You have these major captures. I mean, this year since last summer has been crazy. I've had so much work. All right, so basically, the defense attorney welcomed the decision as an important step toward a resolution. As we've seen over the course of El Mayo being, in U.S. custody, he's written letters, he's pushed for certain things. He's been pretty vocal about his treatment, that he's unhappy, that he was kidnapped. I can only imagine that El Mayo has been, I think he's in a cell. I was going to say he's been in his cell just pissed off. I don't know if he's actually in a cell. So prosecutors and the defense attorney reportedly engaged in plea deal discussions in the wintertime. Totally checks out. Sort of discussing removal of capital risk, which strengthens incentives for a guilty plea in exchange for reduced sentencing, and likely in exchange for sharing some information, which we're going to get into because I really truly believe that this is the bottom line of all of these decisions here. This is why no one is going to die, because they have so much information. I mean, these guys are oracles regarding the war on drugs, the cartels, you name it. And if they're dead, how do you access that information? But if you give them the opportunity to stay alive, imagine what they can share. I'd love to talk to them. Just putting that out there. So if Zambada agrees to a plea, he can offer intelligence on the internal structure and hierarchy of the Sinaloa Cartel, which, although it honestly has completely changed and evolved and shifted since he got picked up, there's certainly a lot of information and key players that he can talk about. And honestly, if he was so just deeply ratted on and betrayed, who knows what he's just willing to share, honestly. He can also obviously talk about fentanyl smuggling routes into the U.S. His charges allege major fentanyl trafficking involvement, which this has been like the key. This is the root of these charges, is the hundreds of thousands of American deaths due to fentanyl. And this is an individual who is responsible for so much of that fentanyl trafficking, that if he spills the beans on how this is getting into the US, the major routes, also any authority figures that perhaps were or are on the cartel's payroll, that's a golden ticket. Really is. Can also probably discuss connections with former leadership figures, blood feuds, betrayals. I mean, the order to murder his own nephew. There's so much lore here. Honestly, it's like a movie. I keep saying this in almost every single dispatch because even I get surprised. I also think that a big one is going to be spilling the beans on network ties across Mexico, US logistics and financial operations. I think that when we talk about cracking down hard on the cartels, what we really focus on, and what I think the focus should certainly be on, are the financial pipelines. And Zambada has all of that key information, particularly when it comes to politicians, whether that be in Mexico or the US, using US financial institutions as this nefarious financial pipeline. Okay? Now, let's talk about Rafael Caro Quintero, because this is another individual who people were like, he's going to get the lethal injection. You thought wrong. Again, could have said I told you so. So he was the co-founder of the Guadalajara cartel, which honestly paved the way for for the cartel landscape that we see today. This was the torchbearer of cartels. He was also wanted in the killing of DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena. Everybody knows this story. Okay, and I've written about this on my Substack. He was murdered in 1985. Caro Quintero was one of multiple of 29 other high-profile cartel figures that were sent to the U.S. in February of this year. Birthday present for me. He pleaded not guilty in New York to charges including leading a criminal enterprise. How do you plead not guilty to that? Leading a criminal enterprise, international drug trafficking, conspiracy, and murder of a federal agent. He's the only one with this big elephant weighing on his chest. I'm so bad with idioms. I'm pretty sure it's elephant in the room. But the elephant in the room has been exposed here, people. So now this week, again, regarding the death penalty decision for Caro Quintero, the DOJ notified courts in New York it will not seek capital punishment against Caro Quintero. That comes along with El Mayo Zambada and also Vicente Carrillo Fuentes. Also big name. We're going to get into his case too. So Caro Quintero's attorney, Elizabeth Macedonio, said they look forward to resolving this matter quickly, essentially suggesting active discussions or interests in plea negotiations. Official filings that I've looked at don't indicate that a plea is imminent, but removing the death penalty essentially aligns with the structure of plea bargaining. Okay? I mean, I'm not a lawyer. Sometimes I say, like, what do I always say when I talk about, I'm not a cop, but I'm not a lawyer. But this is kind of what it's indicating.